Heathrow Terminal 5, truly a benchmark in offering the travelers luxury, style and world-class services. Launched in 2008 at a cost of £4.3 billion. It handled 10.5 million passengers on 92,000 plus flights in the year 2021. Truly a remarkable piece of architecture and achievement. But when it started on 2008, the opening day did not go as planned. It was so bad that an inquiry was actually set up and a report was presented in the House of Commons. But every failure teaches us something, and in this video I'm going to share the lessons learned for project managers and business analysts from the disaster which happened on the opening day of Heathrow Terminal 5. Let's start by looking at what actually went wrong on the opening day. You can see some pictures of what happened on that day. At 4 AM, which is the starting time for the Terminal 5, both passengers and staff had trouble locating the car parks. The delayed opening of the check-in counters resulted in long queues because the staff and passengers were not able to locate the car parks, so they were delayed in entering the terminal. At 4:42, first passengers arrive early but wait an hour for the luggage to be checked in. Throughout the morning, there was a problem with the conveyor belt, and because of that, long queues were formed. And by 4:30, baggage system has completely given up, leading to all the check-ins at the terminal suspended. By 5 PM, the British Airways suspends check-in for all baggages and all the luggages. Many passengers flew without their baggages. On that day, British Airways, the sole operator on that terminal, cancelled 34 flights and many others in the following days. Travelers were inconvenienced. As a result, British Airways incurred millions of dollars in refunds and compensations, not to forget the hit on the reputation. So what went wrong? That is the subject of this video. But before I get into the lessons learned, let me give you the scale of the project we are talking about. When it was completed in 2008, it was a project of mammoth proportions. To understand the size and complexity, let me share some specifications of this project. It involved 163 IT applications, 150 plus IT vendors, 564 interfaces, 2,100 PCs, and more than 9,000 connected devices. It involved cabling, which would cover return trip from London to Istanbul, approximately 3,900 miles. The baggage system of the terminal, then in 2008, was the largest baggage handling system in Europe. It had 11 miles of conveyor belt and was capable of processing up to 12,000 bags an hour. The systems underwent a testing phase before the opening date, and it was tested for a period of 6 months by 16,000 volunteers with all types of scenarios. These are just some of the statistics which are staggering and shows the enormity of the task involved in opening the T5 terminal. Such kind of a complex project definitely leads to certain problems. This is what happened at Terminal 5. But as project managers and business analysts, we need to understand what we should not do so that we don't get into a similar kind of disaster. So, what are the lessons learned? Let me start with the first one, project approach. The airport terminal was to be used solely by British Airways, and so it moved all flights to the terminal on the opening day, except the long-haul flights. Now, once the problem started, there was no option but to cancel all the flights ultimately. This resulted into cancellation of 34 flights, as I mentioned earlier, on the first day, and later on 250 flights altogether by the fifth day, leading to a backlog of flights as well as baggages, which was around 15,000 bags. For a project of this magnitude, the Big Bang approach was not a good approach. A phase-wise approach or some iterative approach would have worked better in this case. Maybe only putting a few flights to start with. Sounds pretty simple, but we are having the advantage of hindsight. Learning number 2, related to risk and crisis management. As discussed earlier, the baggage handling system error led to long queues and ultimately to the cancellation of flights. Baggage handling was only one of a series of problems facing the passengers and travelers. Others included car parking troubles, staff security screening, and general confusion over the unfamiliar layout of the terminal buildings. Passengers said one of the major causes of frustration at the terminal was the total breakdown in communication from the British Airways, as per HBR. Passengers said there was no one on the ground to help and there was no announcements or information on monitors and websites. What a shame. For a project of this size and complexity, risk identification and planning for contingency and even mitigation could have helped in managing the crisis better. The crisis management was poor. Learning number 3, related to logistics and training. According to baggage handlers, the problems had started weeks ago. Rather than having proper training, handlers say they were simply shown around the terminal. Again, with reference to HBR. On the first day, staff also did not know when and how to unload the processed baggage properly, which caused the systems to overload and clog. Reference BBC News 2008. Even not being able to find parking and getting through security added to the opening day problems. Considering the challenge of running operations at a terminal, it was a big miss to not focus on training the staff, because ultimately the operational staff was the key to the operations at the terminal. If they were not trained enough, they were finding it very difficult to handle the situation. As simple as loading and unloading. The fourth learning is about poor implementation and performance planning. The first factor that influenced the information system was forgetting the software filter which was used during the testing phase. The aim of the software filter was to stop the test data, that is the information related to bags, from going into the live Heathrow system. Apparently, someone forgot to remove it after the testing phase was completed. As a result, the Terminal 5 system did not receive information about the bags transferring to British Airways from other airlines. These were the transfer cases. The unrecognized bags were automatically sent for manual sorting in the terminal's storage facility, as per Computer Weekly 2008. There was also a lack of server capacity and capability in handling the messages which were generated from the baggage system. The baggage system works by scanning and giving bags a code. These codes are then stored through the information system. From the testing phase, a number of bags were tested, but not up to the capacity as was expected on the opening day. Now, because of that, there was an increased load and the server froze up, a pure lack of capacity management and performance planning. Learning number 5, stakeholder management. British Airways turned a deaf ear to staff's concern on the system. There is so much evidence of all over the news of staff complaining of not understanding the system, which were ignored and told everything will work out on that day. This is as per Rainer 2008 and Computer Weekly 2008. Even the members of shops and trade unions who were part of the T5 system expressed their concerns on the project and suggested from their experience that the terminal was not yet ready to open. But these suggestions were ignored. This was presented in the report to the House of Commons 2008. So, what was the lesson? All the stakeholders are important and project organization must address stakeholder concerns. This is an important lesson for business analysts as well as project managers. The last learning is about external influence. In this case, being a government project, the government was mainly the external influencer. Since it had been planned for so long, the management felt their obligation to open the terminal on the specified deadline, despite knowing the risks. Another external source, that contributed to the failure was the perception of Heathrow and the British Airways in the eyes of the public as a slow and frustrating system. This is as per the Times 2008. They wanted to address this perception, which led to even bigger fiasco. So what is the lesson? Success of a project is dependent on project management and execution best practices and not on the basis of public perception and ego trips. These were the 6 lessons learned from the Project 5 terminal disaster as per my understanding. I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much.